Welcome to the Unspoken Truth. I'm your host, Rob Russ. If this is your first time here, welcome. It's great to have you here, and if you're back for more, welcome back, and thank you for your ongoing support. Now, I wanted to take a moment and share a message for those of you that are here in Australia. You probably already know that the Australian government that you've selected is not acting or behaving in your best interests. The past few days, over the last week or so, it's really shown us and reminded us just how grubby politicians are and how much they'll lie to get what it is that they want. And they'll keep telling another lie to keep covering up the lie they just told. Now, I want to start out by asking you a quick question today. When was the last time that you saw your federal member in your community? ScoMo is my federal member here in Cronulla, but I've only ever seen the guy 2 times, and I've lived in the Sutherland Shire for more than 20 years. Once I saw him on Australia Day, many years ago, and the other time that I saw him was just a random Saturday morning, just a random weekend, and he was just hanging around for no particular reason. No politician, regardless of their party or the country that they're in for that matter, is plugged into their constituents in the way that you think that they are. If they were, you would see them in your local community. You'd see them in the cafes, in the restaurants, in Woolies and Coles. You'd see them chatting to people and asking questions, and you would have access to them. But it's all bullshit. None of that is true. You don't see them in the community, and there is zero access available to them. You have less than zero chance of getting a meeting with someone like Scott Morrison, and they have less than zero idea about what a normal, reasonable person like me thinks about what matters to me in the community here. He has no idea what I think, has no idea what his constituents are thinking. Now, the first and by far the biggest mistake the Australian government are currently making is lying to you about the voice to Parliament. They'll have you believe that this is all a really good thing and it's going to help a lot of people, but it just isn't true. It isn't going to help you, and it's not going to help anyone that you know either. This voice to Parliament garbage, it's all socialist and collectivist virtue signalling of the highest order. They want you to vote for something, which we still don't know what that something is, and once enough people say yes to that imaginary thing, they'll show us what that pretend thing is and how it will work. It just doesn't make any sense. You're going to be kidding me, right? I couldn't think of a more absurd idea if I tried. Wait, yes I can. What if we made it about the color of your skin? Oh yeah, that's right, it is. The government wants you to allow a minority group that represents less than 4% of the Australian population to have a say over everything that the government does. But they won't say how it will work because they don't actually know how it would work, because we all have to say yes first before they'll tell us how it will work. Imagine how stupid you would have to be to buy into that. But that's what the government is asking you to do. They're taking you for a fool. Let me say it so it's crystal clear for you, and there's no ambiguity in any of these statements. They want you to vote for something that no one knows how it will work until after it's voted for. Do you really trust the Australian government to do the right thing by you? I sure as hell don't. I don't trust them at all, not for a nanosecond. They've just lied to us consistently over the last couple of years, so what makes you think they're going to be trustworthy about this? Wait, I thought of another way it could be more absurd, and that is they're spending more than $300 million of your taxpayer money on an imaginary vote for something that doesn't exist until we all say yes to it. Just imagine the problems that $300 million could solve. I don't know, hospitals, schools, roads, helping old people. I don't know, just saying. Instead of doing some good, the government are deliberately dividing Australia into haves and have-nots. And they're not doing it by your vaccination status. They've tried that. It didn't work. Instead, they're trying to do it by your race. Wait a second. I thought of another absurd, unexpected consequence of the so-called voice. What if I do want the voice to Parliament? What if I think it's a good idea? What if I decided I wanted to be part of that 4% of Australians? I want to be in that minority group. I want to be there. What would I need to do to become part of that minority group? Do you know what to do? Let me show you. Let's take a listen to exactly what I need to do to declare my feelings as the newest member of the Australian Indigenous population. Take it away, Senator Pauline Hanson.
The three qualifications established by the courts are: you have to be descended from someone who lived here before 1788. 2, be accepted by elders in Indigenous communities, or you can self-identify as Indigenous. But these days you need only self-identify because it's too time-consuming for government departments to prove the other qualifications, and any such effort is fraught with potential accusations of racism and discrimination if they don't believe it. It's a deliberately broad and very vague definition. It allows many people who are most definitely not Indigenous to claim otherwise. It creates a climate ripe for fraud.
So what Senator Hanson is really saying is that anyone can tick the box on the government form and identify as Aboriginal or a Torres Strait Islander. Think I'm making it up? Let's take another listen to just how many people suddenly felt as though that they were meant to be in this minority group.
The number of people, remember the 1967 referendum? That was to actually bring the Aboriginal people onto the census. They were included in census in the states, but not nationally. And that was the reason why we had the 67 referendum. And that's why 1971 was the first census that was held. And it was just going on. 116,000 people claimed to be Aboriginal. By 1991, it increased by 129%. to 265,000. Oh, but there's more. That actually, from 1971 to now, it's risen 700%. And between 2016 and 2021, the number of people claiming Aboriginality rose 25.2%, while the national population rose only 8%, and that was including immigration. So it's either let's jump on the bandwagon and claim that we're Aboriginal, tick the box, and we'll actually get this funding.
Folks, in a socialist society, the government wants you to depend on them for everything. They want you to support their thinking, their ideas, and their policies because it would just be safer and it would be easier for you. But that's just not true. We know that that's not true. Socialism has never worked anywhere in the world. And if you've got half a brain in your head, you would realize that socialism is the precursor to communism. First comes all the stupid socialist ideas, like this one we're talking about. Next is the division of family, and they're working really hard to do that to you as well. Then comes the reliance on government for absolutely everything. And finally comes the communist fist that comes along and it gets you to comply with everything. And they force you to do everything with a digital ID and a central bank digital currency. That's where this is all leading, folks. They're doing that in an attempt to keep you safe. Last time they tried that, it didn't work out very well, did it? Don't trust these people, folks, not for a second. They're pretending to be virtuous and inclusive, and they're not either of those things. There is nothing that this socialist government wants more than to divide us. The absolute undeniable proof is in their idea of the voice to parliament. It will divide us into two classes. Less than 4% will have a say over everything, while the other 96% won't have a say over anything. If it gets up, how many people do you think will tick the box on the government form saying that they now feel like they're Indigenous? Remember, in the Labor Party fantasy world of fairies and unicorns, facts don't matter. Only your feelings matter. You must be included. If you feel like a cat, you can identify as that. If you feel like a dog, you can do that. If you feel like you're a man pretending to be a woman, that's okay, cool. If you suddenly have the urge to be a descendant from an Aboriginal Australian, that's okay too. Your feelings are what matter. That's what needs to be included. It doesn't matter about facts. Remember that the opposite of inclusion will happen if the stupid voice to parliament policies are enacted. If it goes through, the Australian Labor Party will have completely succeeded in dividing Australia by race. The results will be unknown, since we don't actually know what we're voting for. But it's a surefire bet that you'll have to continue to be welcomed to your own country and virtue signal some imaginary emerging leader. I don't even know any leaders past, present, or emerging. Do you? Who even come up with that garbage? What rubbish that is. There is no doubt that if the voice does get up, that you'll be forced to continue to apologise for some imaginary crime that you've committed on the Indigenous population of Australia in your lifetime. And you're going to have to do that for the rest of your life. And every other day, you're going to be reminded of some genocide that no one alive in Australia today had anything to do with, and you're going to have to say sorry for it. If you think that I'm overreaching on all of this socialist and communist stuff that I'm talking about here, did you see Craig Kelly's Freedom of Information request that came through in the last couple of days? Now, let me catch you up on that really quickly in case you missed out. If you don't know, Craig Kelly was a member of Parliament during COVID, and what he was doing was saying the opposite of what the government was. He was going against the narrative by asking simple and reasonable questions, and the result of all of that was a massive amount of name-calling, character assassination, public attacks, and a complete cancellation of him as a person, as an individual, and as a politician. Now, the Freedom of Information request now proves that part of the reason that he was cancelled was because some bureaucrat in the government was sending messages to Twitter and to Facebook. Imagine that. A sitting politician with parliamentary privilege and all of the titles and the resources and all of the things that go with that job, he was completely silenced by another government department that didn't like what he was saying, even though the people in that department doing the silencing had absolutely no proof of what he was saying was true or false. They had no idea. They simply didn't like it and got him cancelled. Even Mark Zuckerberg came out and said that you can't censor somebody for being wrong.
So misinformation, I think, has been a really tricky one, because there are things that are kind of obviously false, right, that are maybe factual, but may not be harmful. So it's like, all right, are you going to censor someone for just being wrong? It's, you know, if there's no kind of harm implication of what they're doing, I think there's a bunch of real kind of issues and challenges there.
Yet that's exactly what the Australian government took part in. What's next? Burning books? As history has shown, folks, Mr. Kelly was proven to be right on so many occasions. He was right in so much of what he said, but that's cold comfort to him, because his character and his professional life, he was politically assassinated. Where's the apology from the government department and the people that destroyed an honourable man and a truth seeker for no reason at all? There will never, ever, never be an apology from any of those people, from that department or anyone. No one will ever be held accountable. But Craig will have to live with that character and that political assassination for the rest of his life. I take comfort, and I'm sure he does as well, I take comfort in the fact that he was proven right. The unspoken truth wins again. It always does. But these foolish socialists and these idiots on the left keep making the same mistake. And it's only one mistake. They don't realise that they cannot control another person's mind. That's the mistake that they're making. The government overreach that we're seeing play out right now in the United States is alarming. And my concern is that the grubby politicians here in Australia will end up stooping to these levels sooner rather than later. If you don't know, the Biden Democratic government is doing everything that they can, including weaponizing the Department of Justice and the FBI against their political opponents. I always wondered if something like that was possible here in Australia. And in just the last couple of days, we've heard these words.
This is a discussion where they identify how this would be a political story.
I want something concerning estimates to come out of this. And then I need just any, whether it's footage, whether it's the logs, anything that I can kind of use to back up my word more so than just my word, then absolutely, 100% I'd go hard.
Yeah.
But until then, I just don't have...
And you can't prosecute the Liberal Party, and it's the court of public opinion that can get them. You can't get them in court.
Yeah.
Maybe that night on the show you get on a friendly Labor politician to back it in. And
Now, if you don't know, folks, I'm not going to go into the detail of this because it's beyond the scope of this video, but this was a political hit job done in Australia designed to turn the tide of public opinion against ScoMo and the Liberal Party. And it's one of the biggest scandals in Australian political history, and it's continuing to play out. And we'll figure out how it ends in the next couple of weeks, I guess. But here's the thing. No politician will ever lose their job or ever have to say sorry about any of this. All of the politicians involved won't resign. They'll be right there embedded in the positions that they've got, and they ain't going anywhere. Remember, folks, no one is ever forced to step down when they lie or mislead the public. They're just not held to account. They're not fact-checked. They're not even responsible for the decisions that they make. Remember, Daniel Andrews couldn't even recall how a $50 million contract was awarded. I can't recall. You must be kidding me. These people are so disrespectful to the Australian public, and they simply do not serve you as the constituent or even their party. They only ever serve their own self-interest. It's absolutely disgusting. Why do you care about any of this? I hear you say. Why should I care about any of this? Well, if you're saying that, then you're part of the silent majority, folks. And that means that you're in the center or you're slightly on the right, maybe further on the right of the political spectrum. And you have to start speaking up, because the grubby politicians that continue to get away with all of this chaos and all of this discourse are on the left. They're the ones that are really, really loud, and they're causing all of this. And nothing is going to change until we speak up together. Look, anything was better than ScoMo. I get it. He was an absolute moron. But we've been sold a lie here in Australia. Labor said that we would be better off under them, and it's just not true. Never in our history have petrol prices been so high. The cost of living is so out of control. And I don't even want to get into interest rates. They are skyrocketing and causing so much pain. And Australia is on the verge of a 2008 style collapse. If you're in the silent majority, folks, if you're in the center or on the right, you need to stop being silent. You need to start speaking up and paying attention to what these crooked politicians are doing. They're meant to be there to serve us, but all they seem to do is create the conditions to take more from us. Of all the problems that a politician can cause, inflation is by far the worst and most painful thing that they can inflict on the population. Inflation is the most insidious form of tax, and it comes from simply printing too much money. It hurts low and middle income earners the most, and it's not well understood. It just seems like everything is more expensive. Let me make it simple for you, folks. Every bit of financial hardship and pain that you feel today is a result of a political decision that these incompetent leaders have made. Both parties are as bad as each other. They lie, they cheat, and they use whatever scandal that they need to in order to get what it is that they want. And that's just your money in the form of more taxes. If you're in the silent majority, folks, the sooner you start speaking up, the faster we can all affect change together in this country. Change is not ever going to happen from the top down. Albo is not going to save us. He's trying to divide us. He wants to divide the country, not save the country. The only thing that can create real lasting change in any country in the world is a grassroots movement of people in the center that want a better future for themselves and for their families. I say that anyone that seeks to divide a nation, or anyone that agrees that dividing a nation based upon the color of somebody's skin is a fool and should be ignored, and they should be thrown out as soon as possible. Remember the words of our national anthem, folks. If you're an Australian, these words should mean something to you. You might have forgotten what it means to be an Australian. Here are 2 lines of the second verse that sum up what we all need to do. With courage, let us all combine to advance Australia fair.